दादी, नानी, चाची, ताई, बुआ, मासी, बहन या ननद बनने के पहले मैं औरत हूँ, स्वतंत्र देश की स्वतंत्र नागरिक। मेरी भीख निडर निश्चय है। अब घर की चार दीवारी में कोई ना मुझ पे हाथ उठाएगा, ना ही कोख में हाथ डाल मुझे जिंदा दफनाएगा। खुली हवा में आर्थिक स्वावलंबन की ओर जुड़कर चलना मैं सिखाऊंगी। महत्वाकांक्षाओं का सारथी बन सूरज का सातवां घोड़ा मैं दौड़ाऊंगी। छोटी बड़ी उपलब्धियों की चोटी पे गर्व से ध्वज मैं फहराऊंगी। डर, हिंसा, घातक हमलों की सरहद के परे आजादी की परिभाषा इस पीढ़ी को मैं पढ़ाऊंगी। परिवार की ताकत, देश की गरिमा हूं। मैं औरत हूं, स्वतंत्र देश की स्वतंत्र नागरिक। देश हमारा है। Our guest for this session,
Hello.
Carolina. Hi, how are you?
I'm really good. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting.
Thank you so much for coming here and joining us today. I just did a poem in Hindi, and it actually captures some of the lines that you have said somewhere, where you said, I believe in a world where women live life with dignity and independence and have equal access to economic and social opportunities. And they have freedom from violence and have access to high quality education. So I just took your lines and put them into a poetry in Hindi for all our viewers over here.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. It's beautiful.
I'm really looking forward to talking to you today. For our viewers, I'd just like you to know that Carolina has worked very, very closely at both policy advocacy and at the action practitioner levels. And she's like really invested in a world where everyone is treated with dignity, respect that they're entitled to as human beings. So, Carolina, if it's all right, I would like to just give a brief introduction about you formally to my viewers over here.
Sure.
So just help me if I just say your name right. Carolina Pereira, is that right?
It's perfect.
Thank you. So Carolina Pereira, you are the media activist founder of Tipping Up, a movement and media platform mobilizing, empowering, and connecting a new generation of media activists. You're also the co-director of the Satyam Project, which is a not-for-profit organization in Chennai, India. It's dedicated to empowering women and girls through education. It's breaking the cycle of poverty and inequality. You work as a storyteller for the UN SDG Action Campaign with UNDP. And as ambassador of He for She, which is a UN women movement, you started and implemented the movement in Portugal, which is now a national movement running in universities from north to south, mobilizing young people for gender equality and LGBTQIA plus rights. During the last few years, you have worked as a host and storyteller at the SDG studio for the UN Web TV, collaborated with the communication team of Right Livelihood Award, also known as the Alternative Nobel Prize, was the ambassador and content creator for ID Europa by the European Parliament, and have worked as a multimedia content creator among other initiatives like Global People's Summit, United Nations. That is a very expansive work history. Congratulations for that.
Yeah, now I was hearing it. I was like, oh my God, that's a lot.
It almost seems as if it belongs to someone else, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So if
It's
I was
almost that. What,
so,
Terry?
so if I was to ask you, like I've heard all this about you, but if I was to ask you to give yourself just three words which set you free, what would those words be?
I think purpose and belonging and,
Mm-hmm.
and change.
Change. Why? Why would you give yourself these words?
Uh, I feel that usually when I share my journey, people think that I have figured it out. But the only thing I think that I figured out is my purpose,
Mm-hmm.
and and everything else it's still under construction. and and then I don't know, like belonging, it's super important for me. I love traveling and I have traveled a lot in my life, but I'm always like, I always uh, try to find that sense of belonging. And it's really like when I'm somewhere, I really want to be a local or almost become a local and spend time there. So I'm a slow traveler, and that it's really important for me even to be open to think and to even to have ideas or whatever. I need to feel that I belong. And
Excellent.
change, I would say, I don't know, when I was younger, I wrote a letter to my father saying that change is my favorite word. and, and so since then, I really love the word change, because change, the word gives us hope. um, and it's an action itself. And I really love that word, change, in so many ways, not only the for the world that we want to see, but also people change and people evolve, and change is beautiful, so I really like that word.
Lovely, excellent. It just gives us such an insight into everything that I just heard about all the things that you have achieved and been involved and engaged with. But tell me something, when you were young, I mean, I'm sure at that point of time you said it's under construction, so you definitely did not think of yourself as someone who's going to be working and collaborating with the communications team for Right Livelihood Award, which is the alternative Nobel Prize, as we just heard. So, what is it? What is it that you were really aspiring to? Like, I mean, was it that you already knew where you're going, or how did your journey pan out? How did you end up here today?
That's a really good question, because usually when you do something that people think as a success,
Yeah,
people think that you have planned everything to be there,
yeah.
and that's not true in many times. Actually, people, of course, like we know, first of all, to know what we like or what we are good at, we need to try a lot of things. So I have tried, like I have organized events, I have worked in restaurants, I have done
Mm,
a very of different things.
mm,
Um, but I always grew up with a quote saying, "Leave the world a little better than you found it." And I think my whole journey was actually trying to do that, or trying to figure out the best way of doing that. But in everything that I did,
yes.
on surfing, I tried to do that, or on writing, I tried to do that, on speaking, I tried to do that. So it was just knowing my purpose, and maybe like I'm really grateful that I knew that very early age. But then I
Mhm.
just tried a very of different tools and ways of expressing that.
How brilliant. So you kind of knew what the purpose was, and then everything else that was happening along the way became tools to be able to reach that purpose or express that purpose and take it
Yes,
forward.
but I feel that that's something that I understood maybe 2 years ago. It's not something that I knew when I was 14 years old or something like that. It's just when later you
Yeah.
think about the what is the path um, in your life, then you start seeing some something
Yeah.
of, okay, this
Like,
makes sense. I was always doing this, and you
yeah. So
find
like a pattern begins to emerge, and you kind of connect the dots and say, hindsight, this is what was
exactly,
happening.
exactly.
So you have been very vocal about your position of freedom of press, and you're also a very strong advocate of how media and communication have become increasingly powerful and a tipping point for social and political movements. Just talk to us a little more about this.
Okay, so as I said, I was always trying to leave the world a little bit more better than I found it, and so I was always an activist in many social and environmental issues,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just that again with the time I start understanding that communication it's something that it's very important and defines what we do, because stories, I used to say that stories shape culture, because
Mm,
we are made of stories, and stories basically shape our perspectives, and then we act on our perspectives. and
absolutely.
and so it's really important that we do try to influence those stories, and that we try to hear more voices, and that we have more perspectives, more diversity, and then it was very in a very practical way of activism, like you can be working for human rights for years and advance in some human rights, and then it happens something as Cambridge Analytica and some of those scandals, and you just get, your work goes a little some steps behind, and so it's
Mm,
like, okay, we really need to be more active and make media more accountable. And I was feeling that media was just something there that we were not paying attention, but in
mm.
the end it was influencing a lot our work as activists. So yeah, so I decided to start being more involved in media activism and exploring communication in general as a tool for activism for human rights.
Brilliant. So, when is it that you discovered the power of the story and became a storyteller?
Honestly, I don't know. I always love the stories, and I always write it a lot. And I think that I'm a natural communicator. I'm that kind of people that, I say things, and sometimes even expressing my emotions to friends, or very simple things in life, and people say, how can you say that so naturally, because for me
Right.
it's like, why is that complicated to say this? And
Right.
so I feel that I always had that gift of uh, being able to say things that are maybe complicated, or that people feel that they cannot express it, but
Mm,
I was, for me it was supernatural, you just say things. um,
brilliant.
and so I don't know, it was natural, it was just my natural tool in my life.
No wonder you kind of aligned yourself with the quote that you posted, Eve Ensler's quote. Give voice to what you know to be true, and do not be afraid of being disliked and or exiled. So you just
Exactly.
spoke as it is, what you felt was to be true, and the words came naturally to you. So, is there a moment in time when you actually can kind of now in hindsight look back and say, okay, this is how I embarked on my journey to for social justice and human rights? Like, what's the story behind that? When did you actually become part of the movement?
Okay, actually it was India.
Oh, really?
uh, yes, so I was a surfer, and I started a project called My Destiny back then, and My
Mm-hmm.
Destiny started as a surf trip to Indonesia, in which I wanted to have positive impact before, during, and after the trip. But that project then became bigger, because again, I don't know how, but communication. And I was invited to an event called India Surf Festival in
Mm-hmm.
Puri. um, and then we were just three Portuguese girls, very young, 20 years old, and we accepted. But I wanted to leave a positive impact, so I went on Google Maps and searched the area, and I found an orphanage. there called Ashankiran, if I'm pronouncing it right. And so I basically I emailed them and I said that I wanted to collaborate with them and to be part of it. And when I traveled to the India Surf Festival, the event was 1 week, and we decided that we were going to spend there 1 month to work with the orphanage.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were working with girls from their orphanage and with some women who have suffered acid attacks from their husbands. And it was, I mean, I was not
Mm.
prepared at all for India in general. It's just, I love the country, but it was a boost of sensations, basically, from colors to the smell of it to the
Yes.
movement on the streets. And I feel that it was, I was an activist before, but I feel that it was in that moment and in that month and through the conversations that I had with people there, with the community, that I felt, uh, no way, okay, I really want to do this in my life, and I really, like, I don't know, it's just something that you feel, when you just feel your body pumping and you feel, okay, this is right. Like, I was feeling I'm in the right place right now, and I
Yes.
really want to do this. And
Yes.
even that's why later I joined and started Satyam, even if it's not in Puri, it's in Chennai. But Satyam is basically my give back to India, because I really wanted to, because then my life just started in other way, like he for she, United Nations, Portugal, other countries, Kenya. And I didn't come back. I was coming back to India to travel, but not, to work there. And I just felt that, okay, India gave me so much in so little time that I really want to have a project here. So that was one of the goals in my life, of giving that back to India.
Lovely, beautiful, Carolina. Thank you so much for sharing. And I've been watching and looking at some of your posts that you have. And Satyam Project also, I've been reading about that. But tell us, for the viewers, just tell us what the project is. Just tell us
Okay.
a little more detail of it.
So basically, we work very close with an organization in Chennai called KKSS, and we work with them to empower girls and women through education to break cycles of poverty in their families. Um, and that's basically it. We give them access to high quality education. We give them shelter. We take some babies from the streets and try to do something for them. We work with women. We are now building a Sati Empowerment Center to work with women and prepare them, in for a lot of skills from uh, from, like, I don't know, like, basically family,
Mhm.
to how to find the job, how to protect yourself, how to a lot of things. And so that's basically it. And the idea is to empower them so that they don't need to come back and they can actually break those cycles of poverty in their families.
That's something which is really so critically important. Is how do you break these cycles of patterns of behavior which are there, or situations which are there, and people are trapped in that. So, what is that small little transcending moment that one can create through any kind of an opportunity or skill or capacity in order to make the people transcend and come out of that loop in which you're trapped in? Brilliant. And economic empowerment is actually literacy, education, and economic empowerment. We also believe sexual freedom. We also believe freedom from sexual violence. That's something
Exactly.
is really, really important. Like, I mean, you take sexual violence to a limit and it becomes acid attacks, right? So
Exactly.
that's also something that we kind of very, very strongly believe in. Um, you have said that, for change, bringing about change, I mean, people power is important, but people in positions of power is also very important. Like
Yeah.
people power, but powerful people as well. And that is a combination that you kind of really strongly speak about. So tell us from your experience and your work about how do you say this is important?
Okay, um, so first of all, I I truly believe that that's basically saying that power should be shared and more diverse, because usually um, people in decisions of power or in positions of power make decisions for groups of people. But
Mm.
actually, those groups of people, those groups of unprivileged people, are the ones who have the solutions, usually the best solutions for themselves, because
Yeah,
when the unprivileged choose, they choose better. I mean, they know what's better for them. And
yeah,
so there's this lack of uh, even of diversity and representation, and basically access to opportunity. You can rename power with access of opportunities, basically.
yes, yes,
That's why when we say empower someone, it's basically trying to give them access to the same opportunities that others have, because they are in a position of privilege. Um, and so because I basically I navigate a little bit through both worlds, because I collaborate a lot with United Nations, so I'm used to be around tables of decision makers and high level people. But first of all, I don't identify with that profile. And I'm an activist who then goes like to the streets and protests for them, you know.
yeah, yeah,
So it's basically I navigate in both worlds, and I'm just trying to
yeah.
do the best. And usually my position when I'm in those rooms, it's calling for diversity, and it's, you know, making putting your finger in the air and saying, are we not missing someone here? Like, we
Mm,
are talking
mm,
about LGBTQ people, or we are talking about women's rights, or minorities in general, and where are they, you know, in this room? And so usually that's what I try to do, because or for example, when people give me
mm,
a privileged position of being a speaker in this or that event, uh, usually I try to actually point someone else, you know, and who is the minority that they want to talk about. So I
mhm,
have this, you know, database of people that I really try to look at these, you know, Nigerian lesbian girl, for example, or you know, you can ask her. she's
yeah,
the she's the one who should be there. And that's it. It's really trying to navigate in both worlds, but
yeah.
and both are really important.
And you brought the two worlds together when you encouraged and started the he for she movement in Portugal. And tell us a little more about that, yes.
Yeah, it's a UN movement, UN women movement, but
Yes.
it's at the same time a very people's movement, because it's UN women in terms of brands, and you have some guidelines, but it's totally in the hands of people. Basically, if people don't do the he for she in their own way, the movement will die. And that's it. I After the work that we were doing in India, I was invited to a UN United Nations summit, and in there I won a prize of young leader or something similar to that. And the prize was to have a mentor from UN Women during a year. And
Okay.
then basically it was that mentor who start giving me trainings and pointing on really nice things for me to learn more about gender equality and how is it related to everything from climate action to finance to economy to everything. And and the playground was he for she, so basically you can explore all of these and implement these movements. And then I
Mm.
came back to Portugal, and it actually started very in a very simple way of creating a Facebook group and saying, hello everyone, I just came back from France and had this training on gender equality, and there's this movement called he for she, do you think it makes sense or not? And then they started adding friends, and then we made an open meeting, like everyone from gender equality organizations in Portugal could join, because the idea was to understand from the start if it makes sense to create another movement, or if there's space for it, or if we are just being another tent,
Mm.
uh, in, in the space. And it
Right.
made sense, and they said that we should be it makes sense if you become a youth movement, because there's no very strong youth movements for gender equality in Portugal. And so
Mm.
the team just became working on it. The movement started on inside of universities, and now it's just spread around a lot of universities in Portugal. And I feel that it's the young movement for gender equality, because it's really like it's just growing organically of people opening more clubs in university and just mobilizing each other, and it's just growing by itself.
Brilliant.
It's amazing to see.
Excellent. Excellent. And it's movements like these who actually break the silence, because it's the power of stories and sharing of those stories which makes us all, creates a collective narrative, and it makes us all look at it and say, hey, we are not alone. We are actually the marginalized majority which are, swarming over here as such, people who are experiencing all of this inequality. I don't know if you know, but we are also engaged in working against four barriers of denial, silence, shame, and stigma that surrounds child sexual abuse. We have actually got a partnership and a mandate with the government of India to reach across to 40,000 colleges spread across every single part of India and work with
That's
about
amazing.
400,000 students, and create a movement, create a absolutely a groundswell of people who are committed to preventing harm, and especially child sexual abuse. So I'm going to just take 3 minutes of your time and show you a small
Yes,
clip, and to all of yours a small little film, a 3-minute film, which captures some of the work that we have been doing on ground. And then we
amazing.
will resume our conversation here. Yes. Are we going into the film? So once we have seen the film, then I have one very, very important question to you, and that's related to the Sustainable Development Goals of 2030.
Yes,
And especially, you must be familiar with the SDG 2030 that
sure.
we have all. So one of the goals that we have over there, which is goal 16, it's about promoting peaceful and inclusive societies for
Six-year-old
accountability.
child was
Okay, I'll pick this up after the movie. After this film, I'll pick it up. Yes.
a 6-year-old child was
This is
outraged.
the third
The girl
time
alleged
just
she
in
was
a year
sexually
alone.
abused children are boys by her uncle.
Child sexual abuse is often hidden, unseen, or unreported, and its effects on the individual, family, and society are profound and long-lasting.
कोई भी ऐसी घटना जो हमारे साथ घटती है that makes us feel small and excluded becomes a secret inside us.
I have been through this twice and they were very close to me. We all experience something which we don't want, but that happened with us.
क्योंकि आपके साथ में child sexual abuse हो रहा है, are you experiencing any obstacles in accessing your right to equality?
समानता है
या होनी चाहिए? कौन कहता है? We the people of India give ourselves this constitution.
It's your constitution. It's your right to equality. Why don't you practice it every day?
Through the Rakshan project, Sakshi is working towards creating a social tipping point for an India where child sexual abuse does not occur.
आज का प्रोग्राम इतना हेल्पफुल था कि मुझे कोई वर्ड नहीं मिल रहा है बोलने के लिए।
एक ऐसा घटना जो हम किसी शेयर नहीं कर पाते, वो घटना आज मैंने शेयर किया।
इतने सालों से मैं ना बोल नहीं पाती थी।
ऐसे बोलिए as if your life depends on it.
जब मैंने आंख बंद करके नो चिल्लाया तब मुझे बहुत हिम्मत मिली।
लोग कई चीजों से बोलने से शर्माते हैं।
ये क्या है?
और कहीं ना कहीं यह चीज दब कर रह जाती है।
प्रेस, शर्म आ रही है? मुझे तो नहीं आ रही, आपको क्यों आ रही है?
लोग क्या कहेंगे, सोसाइटी क्या कहेंगे, उस चीज को आज मतलब मैं पीछे छोड़ के I can speak up now.
Directorate of NSS, Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports, Government of India has directed Sakshi to deliver workshops to prevent child sexual abuse under the POXO Act 2012.
Across 40,000 colleges across the country. Who better than NSS units? The future of my country tomorrow, who have committed to do service from today.
जहाँ भी मैं बुरा सुनूंगा, जहाँ बुरा देखूंगा, तो मैं चुप नहीं रहूंगा, मैं आवाज उठाऊंगा।
प्रोटेक्शन जरूरी है, लेकिन प्रोटेक्शन से भी ज्यादा जरूरी क्या है? Don't they say prevention is better than cure?
रक्षण कौन है जो प्रिवेंट करे?
It's a matter of your choice.
क्या होना चाहते? एक चेंज एजेंट या एक इंसान?
It's time to speak up and say no. It's time to say stop child sexual abuse.
न करेंगे, न करने देंगे। सब बोलिए जोर से। So if all of you sitting over here, if each one of you teaches two, then it becomes how many?
If you want to be a part of the movement, if you want to support the Rakshan project, if you want to stop child sexual abuse, then connect with us at www.therakshanproject.org.
Wow.
Thank
It's
you.
amazing. I'm with goosebumps.
Thank you.
Congrats.
This is hard work. This is heartbreaking work.
Wow.
And this is very important work because we are saying that 50%, if the survivors are 50% people who have experienced it, then it's 50% of the population that we're talking about over here who are living with unresolved trauma. And we need to create this movement. So I am going to really be in touch with you with your permission and actually pick up some tips and points on how is it that we can keep strengthening the movement that we are already engaged in and are working on very, very closely and very, very strongly. And most importantly, the question that I would like to ask you is that the SDG goal has a very specific indicator where it's saying that the proportion of young men and women and between the age of 18 and 29, the experience who have experienced of sexual violence till the age of 18, which is the legal age which defines a child, is going to reduce drastically by 2030. How do we measure that? In all your experience, have you come across any tools, mechanisms, surveys where we are able to measure something like that?
During my path as a social entrepreneur, I feel that social impact measurement is still something a little bit on the making. There's very different methodologies, and even speaking with impact investors, some of them have some criteria of what they think is impact. For example, some of them measure in terms of numbers and really want to kind of turn that in something that they can create accounts as is in a financial way, trying to make that a value of money. And others try to evaluate impact in a more deeper way, like if this created what is change or what is impact. The impact is if we give a workshop to a kid, or is then is when that kid is completely empowered and we finish a process. When is the impact happening in there? So honestly, what I have been doing is I create my own KPIs or my own uh, ways of measuring the impact. So what we as a team in our project feel that it would become impact. And I'm the kind of people who see impact in a very deeper way. So probably in Satyam project, in Tipping Up, all the projects that I'm involved right now, I can only measure impact in 5 years, probably. If I really think, if I really think of it impact means for me. But I know that there's a lot of organizations and social entrepreneurs who can measure impact is 6 months in 6 months. And it's just a different way of seeing impact, and then they can sell that impact to an investor, and they work with numbers like, okay, we have scaled for 40 cities, and that's the impact, and that's not the impact for me. But this is in a very personal way. So I think if you had someone else here,
No,
probably.
we are very aligned with your way of thinking. We are totally aligned in how you are looking at impact, because that is also what we look at when we talk about impact, is about seeing whether the person is actually empowered completely or equipped to do everything that we are trying or educating or informing or building a knowledge body for. Totally over there. Carolina, this has been a very, very interesting and engaging conversation, and I do hope that we can continue our conversation offline as well, beyond this live that we're having here today. Everything that you have achieved and what you are kind of actually doing in your own personal life is really going to inspire many, many youth who will be watching this live over here, that if you have a purpose and if you actually go with the flow and you let everything become a tool to achieving that purpose, anything is possible. Everything
Yes,
that
don't make it too complicated.
it is not
Uh,
complicated.
you just have to start. And thank you so much for having me. I was super happy when I was invited, because I do love India, and it's an honor for me to be here. I loved the conversation. Thank you so much, and happy Independence Day for you.
Happy Independence Day to us and you as well. I'd just like to very quickly share that we are running a campaign on a keto page, which is to enable or encourage all of us to create ructions. Ructions for us is the students or anybody who commits to preventing harm. So any person who commits to prevent harm for us is called a ruction. So may I ask if you would identify yourself as a ruction?
Yes, definitely.
Thank you so much. I'll also take this opportunity to invite you. We have every Sunday we have a webinar that we have at 3 o'clock, 3 p.m. India time, which is about the time that we started this live. And if at that point of time you would like to come, or if you'd like to spread the word, this is just to give an understanding of what is it that we can all together do to stop child sexual abuse.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the work that you do. It's truly inspiring. I'm inspired right now. So and I feel that the interview should be the other way around, because I would love to hear more about everything you do.
We must have a longer conversation as we go forward. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Thank you.
Stay at home, stay safe, we were told. But what if homes are not safe for 1 out of 2 children in our country? Sakshi has been working to make homes safe for the last 28 years. At this critical time, we've stepped up what we've been doing, because every home has to be a safe space.
Hi, I'm Vanora Vaz. On this Independence Day, I, as Rakshan, pledge to prevent harm, make home a safe space, and stop child sexual. I'm Vanora Vaz. On this Independence Day, I, as Rakshan, pledge to prevent harm, make home a safe space, and stop child sexual abuse. Happy Independence Day from Sakshi, Artu, and Fire Events. It's everything I am and what I'm not and all I'm trying to be. This is the part where I spit it all out and you decide what you think of me. I'm not trying to be complicated, I'm never waiting to get the last laugh. But I've been handing out benefits of the doubt, and I'd like a little bit back. It's just a little voice, and if you listen now, sometimes a little voice can say the biggest things. It's just my little voice that I've been missing. Looking over the precious moments, it hurts, don't it? They can cut both ways. No amount of remembering the better things will make the bad ones go away. But I've been broken and the one to blame. So my savior of self-defense taught me to sing what I can't say. It's just a little voice, and if you listen now, sometimes a little voice can say the biggest thing. It's just my little voice that I've been missing. It's just my little voice that I've been missing.